This is the In Focus podcast from The Hindu.
Hello and welcome to the Hindus in Focus podcast with me, Amit Baruah, your host for this episode. Delhi's Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal has been given interim bail to campaign in the elections. After many hearings, a two-judge bench of the Supreme Court granted conditional bail to Kejriwal on the 10th of May. Describing the elections to the Lok Sabha as the most significant event this year, the bench, facing stiff resistance from the centre, pointed out that Kejriwal had no criminal antecedents, nor was he a threat to society. What implications does Kejriwal's release have smack in the middle of the election campaign? Will he impact elections in the 7 seats of Delhi or even beyond? I'm joined by senior journalist and commentator Javed Ansari to discuss the implications of the Chief Minister making interim bail. Welcome to the In Focus podcast, Javed.
Thank you for having me on.
So, Javed, what do you think are the implications of Mr. Kejriwal being released bang in the middle of the election campaign, albeit with conditions by the Supreme Court on the 10th of May?
Amit, this is certainly bound to come as a shot in the arm, a huge shot in the arm for the Aam Aadmi Party in particular and the India Alliance in general. Mr. Kejriwal has portrayed himself, managed to position himself as a victim of the central government's high-handedness. And if conventional wisdom and the past is anything to go by, the Indian electorate always tends to sympathize with those it perceives to be at the receiving end of the center or the state government's high-handedness. So therefore, Mr. Kejriwal has been released barely a fortnight before Delhi goes to polls. He's already hit the streets as we speak. He will spearhead their campaign, and especially in Delhi, where they have a very active and a very organizational network, they are bound to milk this politically. He will portray himself as a victim, as his party is already doing so, and then try and generate as much political sympathy as they can for the Aam Aadmi Party candidates and also by extension to the India Alliance.
So, Javed, before we get into the politics of it all, what would you say? I mean, Mr. Kejriwal is the only one who's managed to come out of jail. His ministerial colleagues are in jail. Jharkhand, Hemant Soren, who was Chief Minister of Jharkhand till recently, he's in jail. So why you think Mr. Kejriwal managed it while not either his colleagues or even someone like Mr. Soren?
Yeah, it does prima facie appear that Mr. Kejriwal, the bench has, Mr. Kejriwal has managed to get a nod from the Supreme Court as far as, and others like Hemant Soren, etc., are still languishing. But the last has not been heard of in the Hemant Soren case. His bail is posted for hearing day after tomorrow, that is on Monday. And who knows, going forward, we might see that Hemant Soren might also come out. But because the courts once you take a decision, once you announce a judgment, it becomes a precedent. This case will also become a precedent, not just for Mr. Hemant Soren, but a lot of other political prisoners who are languishing, who will cite this as an example to try and get permission from the courts to go out and campaign.
So, Javed, what is your sense? I mean, what impact? We know that in a sense, the only real fresh alliance in the India grouping, of course, they have other alliances everywhere, but Delhi is in a sense a new alliance for both Aam Aadmi Party and the Congress, which have been at daggers drawn. What do you think was going to be the impact in Delhi of Mr. Kejriwal's release?
Look, now the BJP in the last two general elections in 2014 and 2019 swept Delhi. They won 7-0 with the Congress and the Aam Aadmi Party coming together. That it forms at least on paper, it forms a strong bulwark against the BJP. This time now the BJP has a fight on its hand, and with Mr. Kejriwal being released, they're going to enter into it with renewed vigor. For one, it will help stop the division of the anti-BJP votes. And two, now they have a eloquent speaker, a very doughty and vigorous campaigner in Mr. Kejriwal. It is now up to the political management skills of both the Aam Aadmi Party and the Congress Party in Delhi and the India Alliance in general on how they encash it or how they take this to the people. Because the alliance is not just limited to Delhi, although in Delhi, the effect will be seen a lot more than the rest of the country, because they also have an alliance in Gujarat. They also have an alliance in Goa and in Haryana. And the Congress and the Aam Aadmi Party are at loggerheads. They are fighting each other in Punjab. So it's the real significance of the real impact of this alliance will be felt in Delhi, in the 7 Lok Sabha seats of Delhi.
So, Javed, tell us, there are a lot of, you covered the Congress Party for a long time. You were covering the Congress Party for the Hindu as well for many years. From whatever one sees, there are elements within the Congress who are not happy with this alliance with the Aam Aadmi Party. And of course, we've had Delhi Congress Chief Arvind Singh Lovely quit and then join the BJP. What is your sense? I mean, will the cadres on the ground of the Congress and Aam Aadmi Party actually manage to work together?
Well, it's not a marriage made in heaven, but it's certainly out of compulsion, and they have no other choice. Who are the people who are opposed to an alliance with the Aam Aadmi Party? Mr. Sandeep Dixit and Mr. Lovely, Arvind Singh Lovely, who has now gone back to the BJP. They were amongst the first to reach Mr. Kejriwal's residence the day he was being arrested. And they said, "Oh, we are here, we stand shoulder to shoulder with our ally." The reason that they are now expressing reservations about this alliance is because neither of them have got a ticket. If Mr. Sandeep Dixit had been fielded from say, Chandni Chowk or from Northeast Delhi, he would have been quite happy. Everything would have been hunky-dory as far as the alliance is concerned. The same applies to Mr. Lovely, because their own ambitions have been thwarted, so that they are now giving it this great idea, trying to give it a great ideological window dressing, which people who know politics see through all this. So while some of the leaders may or may not come together, I think the coming together of the vote base of these two alliances will happen to a fairly large extent. And if that happens, then it will reflect in the final result in the 7 Lok Sabha seats in Delhi.
Javed, I also want to ask you about Mr. Kejriwal himself. His has been a long journey in politics in a short while. He was the spearhead of the anti-corruption movement, which in a sense brought down the UPA 2. He has now been Chief Minister 3 times. And he has a persona and he has national ambitions. He's not a party which is confined to Delhi. So he's not a regional force in that sense. He has national ambitions. Do you think that this attack on the AAP, in a sense, putting his ministers, his leaders behind bars and now implicating him in this excise scandal, is this actually going to lead to, building a bigger stature for Mr. Kejriwal?
Again, a lot will depend on how he goes forward, because Mr. Kejriwal has in the past, if you recall, he started off with the help of the BJP. That so-called Andolan against corruption had both open and tacit support from the BJP. Thereafter, he started carving out a place for himself as a separate entity. In the middle, he had positioned himself as a right-of-center alternative to the BJP, but he now appears to have realized that if people want to go for the right of center, they will go to the original rather than to the wannabe. So he's now, for the moment, decided to hitch himself to the bandwagon of the India Alliance, and based on the result, he will then take it for, because and then this business of being targeted, so many ministers being in jail, this has come as a temporary setback. He had positioned himself as a crusader against corruption. So till he finally gets cleared of that and his ministers get cleared of that, there will be a talking point against him. Some of that sheen has worn off, but what does work in his favor is the fact is this populist scheme, especially in Delhi. Free electricity, free water, his mohalla clinics, his model schools. All that goes down very well with the lower middle class and the poor. My own maid was telling me just the day before I was watching television, there was some story on Kejriwal. She turned around and told me, she said, Bhaiya, the reason why they put him in jail is because he was giving us free water and free electricity. So he has struck a chord with a certain section, but a lot will depend on his political management skills, on how he goes forward, on the direction that his politics takes. This adversity has presented him with an opportunity. Now much will depend on how he encashes it.
And Javed, he's not a regional force. He has national ambitions. How do you think all these corruption cases, is being jailed? You made a reference to it earlier as well. How do you think he's going to impact his national ambitions?
Look, he has certainly been national ambitions. He wants to be seen as the alternative to the BJP, but he has traveled some distance here, but he has a much longer distance to travel at the national level before he can be seen as a serious challenger or a viable alternative to the BJP. These are temporary setbacks that that his party has had to face. This is actually the first real test, and much will depend on how they emerge out of this, because it often happens that in times of adversity, people jump ship. Much is being made out of the Raghav Chadha is conspicuous by his absence in the last couple of months and all that has been going on in Delhi earlier. He was one of the prominent faces in the campaign. So maybe there will be some desertions. Maybe there will be, some people may decide to just call it a day. But it will depend on their staying power, on their stamina and their ability to move on. On the other side, you have the likes of Sanjay Singh, etc., doughty fighters, campaigners, who are bravely standing by his side and who are campaigning. For now, Mr. Kejriwal appears to have realized that first they must ride out the storm, ride out this onslaught from the BJP in tandem with the India Alliance, and then take things from there.
Right. Javed, I also want to ask you, why is the BJP specifically targeting the Aam Aadmi Party? Is it because Mr. Kejriwal also makes an appeal to religion? He has positioned himself in different ways in his, political journey. So why specifically hit out at Kejriwal? Because if you remember, the last time he was elected, one of the first ports of call he made was to meet the Prime Minister. He met the Home Minister. So it seemed that they were trying to mend fences for a period. But however, all that fell through. So why do you think the BJP is really going after the Aam Aadmi Party in a sense?
One, because Kejriwal has positioned his party as a right-wing alternative to the BJP. So he largely, for a long time, he flirted with that idea. He walked some distance, especially his role his inaction during the riots in Delhi and in his, he was missing in action. His party was missing in action when the Delhi riots was happening. He gave the clearance for the persecution of a lot of people. However, he appears to have now realized the futility. The other reason is that his clean image. Till now, Mr. Kejriwal is amongst the very few opposition leaders who doesn't have a case either real or trumped up against him. It's only now, last month, that he was, or about 2 months ago, when he was put in jail on these charges on the liquor scam. So he enjoyed a relatively clean image, and the BJP and its political managers wanted to tarnish that image, punch a hole in that carefully crafted image of Kejriwal's, because the Prime Minister would have the world believe that he's the only clean politician in India and everybody is corrupt. And they tried to target Kejriwal much the same way as they tried to target Sonia Gandhi, Rahul, and a host of opposition leaders.
So, Javed, tell us, we are now smack in the middle of the elections and, alliances, as you pointed out, were key. So, what is your sense of some of the major alliances for India? How are they working out, especially in Maharashtra and in Bihar? How would you assess the health of these alliances?
Look, Maharashtra is, despite all that has happened, despite the fact that the B split the Shiv Sena, despite the fact of a section of the Congress leadership, yet the Maha Aghadi alliance is giving the BJP Shiv Sena alliance a run from its money. Anecdotal evidence and all reports coming in from the ground suggest that the battle has been joined in Maharashtra. During the last elections, the Sena and the BJP were together and they just ran away with that election. That was the runaway victory. That doesn't, I cannot forecast a number, but what one can safely say, but that is not going to happen. It's going to be a much closer affair. In Bihar, Nitish Kumar has again done a flip-flop and gone back to the BJP. But while reports indicate that the BJP's Nitish Kumar alliance will win a large number of seats, it will not be. Last time the India alliance or UPA just won one seat and 39 seats went to Nitish Kumar and the BJP. This time around, that certainly is not going to happen. If reports are to be believed, then the opposition, that is the India alliance, could get anywhere between 8 to 12 seats there. So that will be a dent. That will be a significant dent in the NDA's tally.
So, Javed, obviously alliances are really important, in this opposition campaign. BJP itself has stitched up, several alliances for itself. But what is your sense? I mean, one of the main criticisms against the opposition India alliance is that they don't have a prime ministerial candidate. And in contrast, you have Mr. Modi, a strong leader, been prime minister for 2 terms. You may differ on his assessments, but he's right up there in front and he is the leader of the BJP and there's no challenge to him. So what would you say? Is the India alliance handicapped by the fact that they don't have a candidate for the prime minister's job?
Look, the reason why the India alliance doesn't have a prime ministerial candidate is because they couldn't agree on one. However, this unwittingly is also helping the India alliance because the BJP and Prime Minister Modi can no longer posit this contest as a binary between Prime Minister Modi and Rahul Gandhi or Prime Minister Modi or anybody else. There is no primary target. So who does the Prime Minister target? There is no overarching national issue on which the BJP can peg this election. Now, it's a lot like local elections happening. So somewhere it's paper leak, elsewhere in most paper places it's unemployment, price rise, farmers' distress, etc., etc. There are stray animals in UP, paper leak in Uttar Pradesh. So local issues, the Prime Minister is having to battle and answer local issues. And for the first time, it's not the BJP, it's not the Prime Minister who's setting the agenda, but it's the other side, and he's having to do all the answering. And he's not doing a great job of it. Certainly, there is a lot to be said. The India alliance is not a perfect one. So I get the feeling that they were not convinced after they lost the last round of state elections. They appear to have lost a lot of momentum. They were not convinced that they'd be able to, that they have a fighting chance, that they have a chance of making a match of this elections. And that's why, that spirit of give and take, that spirit of walking the extra distance to accommodate each other, that chemistry was missing. Now suddenly even they see, just as the government and the Prime Minister and his political managers appear to have been surprised, so has the opposition. They now realize that there is something happening on the ground, and perhaps there is something there worth fighting for. Had they worked out the seat arrangements in a much better fashion, this fight would have been a lot closer. Politics, at the end of the day, Amit, you and I have both been in the field for a long time. Coalition politics is all about managing contradictions. The India alliance ought to have done a better job of it. Perhaps in a state like West Bengal, They ought to have been fighting together, at least the Congress and the Trinamool Congress. Even in Bihar, an extra effort ought to have been made to try and keep Nitish Kumar within the alliance. But anyway, now all that is water under the bridge. Given the ground situation, this election, to my mind, I could be wrong, but this election, to my mind, is a lot closer than the previous two elections. And as they say, it's game on.
Well, on that note, Javed Ansari saying it's game on. We'll see what Arvind Kejriwal does after his release. He has a number of events already scheduled. He announced that outside the Tihar jail on the 10th of May. Let's see how this game proceeds in the next several rounds of elections. Thank you very much, Javed Ansari, senior journalist and commentator, former political writer for The Hindu, joining us for the In Focus podcast.
Thank you for having me, Anish. Thank you.
In Focus will be back soon with analysis of the biggest news issues. In the meantime, you can find our podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, and other platforms. Just search for In Focus by The Hindu. We'll see you soon.